Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. Today I will show you how I tame a pair of Levi jeans. So the very first thing I will need to do, obviously each iron is different, so you're going to find your heat settings, and as per the label here, which obviously I would have read at this stage, being a pair of cotton jeans, you're looking at a hot cotton iron, and being a fairly thick pair of jeans, or rather should I say the fabric itself, you want to take it from the dry. I'm going to use a medium steam setting for these jeans so that it really does penetrate the fibers. We've set our temperature on the iron, we've got our steam settings correct. What we want to do, we've tested our iron aside from the garment to make sure that everything's okay. We also want to test our iron on an inconspicuous area of the garment. The inside of the fly is perfect for this. For this particular part of the segment, I'll be using an unconnected iron. It's cold, it's just so that you have an opportunity to see how the edging and the riding the tip and the various techniques I might be using, how they work. So again, I haven't started ironing yet. I want to make sure that I'm not going to be shining up or that I'm not going to be leaving an imprint. And it's a very, very quick technique. It's just a quick touch and an edge. The touch tells me whether or not my iron is too cold, too hot, whether it's going to leave any shine, and of course the edge really defines, which is just using the edge of this iron, of the sole plate. You can possibly see that I can leave an imprint very easily onto the table, or in fact onto the fabric there. So this is the best way, or the fastest way, of finding out what you can expect from the rest of the jeans. So now I know the minute that I've touched and edged, I will be able to tell whether or not I should be using a cover cloth, whether or not they'll be shining up, or whether I'll be using an imprint, or leaving an imprint as I go, which obviously I don't want to do. So once I know what temperature or whether or not it's going to leave an imprint or a shine, I can decide what I might need to do, whether it's working on the reverse, or in this particular case I might be going over a cloth. Now I'm not sure about the rest of the pants at this stage because it's a cold iron, but I do know that this particular leather tag will need to be done over a cloth. So that's another technique that you might be able to employ in any of the garments that you're using when you're not sure of the temperature. If you're not sure that you might shine up or melt anything, use your cloth. So instead of sitting on it, I'll be lifting the fabric. I'll be gliding along here, along with the edge, along the fabric in midair, as I'm using my shot of steam to force the steam through the fabric. Now this way I'm not landing on the fabric, I'm not making any imprints here or shine, simply holding, dragging the edge of the iron along the fabric and then back again. To ride the tip of the iron means to place the iron just on the edge right there, and as my fingers are stretching the stitch, it's riding towards my hand. Therefore again, I'm not getting any shine or imprint. I'm only going along the edge, literally riding just the tip of the iron. Nothing else needs to be touched. So while I'm here, having ridden the tip, I can also slice or cut underneath with the tip of my iron, going inside underneath various things. Okay, so to get the best type of finish when you have a raveled up edge on the bottom of a sleeve, or in this case a pant leg, I'd use a reverse the heel technique. In other words, this would have already been ironed, this is still sticking up, so I will come back down and sit on it with my heel and come all the way through until it's finished. You'll want to straighten the jeans or the stitches up, and the best technique for there is a press and stretch technique, which basically means you're pressing down the iron, and as you're pressing down with the iron, you stretch the stitch away with your left hand or your other hand. So press and stretch, press and stretch, press and stretch until you have a beautiful flat finish. Okay, now this technique, very handy for problem areas or specifically really tight creases that you might have in your fabric. It's called sit and stay. Pay attention, it's very, very complicated. That's it. Now, if the sit and stay technique doesn't work, you may need to knead. That's K-N-E-A-D, knead as in dough, the fabric. That's where you, again, using the edge of your iron, you can stretch the fabric and move the creases away from each other. So what I'm doing is I'm literally kneading with this, pushing my body weight into the table, and that's stretching out these wrinkles. And mind you, this is still a cold iron. Just my kneading technique alone has been able to take those wrinkles out. And then there's a technique that we call brush away. It can be done with my hands, in other words, holding here and brushing the fabric in the direction I want it to go. Or I can also use my iron, save time, and do the same thing by brushing the fabric in the direction I want it to go. Placement and process is all about how we're going to move the jeans, how we're going to get around, or the garment, how we're going to get around. Now we know we've got a pocket here. I could start by doing my pocket separately, or I can just use what we call a pocket slip out technique. There it is already there for me, and I can already iron here as well without going back and forth. The fastest way to move fabric or a garment on and off the table is to drag off and drag back on. So basically it's coming off and being taken back up. So drag off, drag on, drag off, drag on, drag off, drag on, and that's going to get you around very, very nicely. Okay, so what we call a sectioning technique, basically, very simply put, means to, in your mind, separate the garment into specific sections. So we've got the legs, we've got the shins, we've got the thighs, and then work them an area at a time. So here, I'll be working the thigh. As I'm coming back down, I'll then worry about the hip area, and finally, I'll section it down to get my waist area. Okay, zigzag. The technique is basically a matter of how you're going to be moving the fabric or the garment on your table. It's very, very handy when you don't want the table to be tipping back and forth on you. You can easily just drag or zigzag from one side to the other and back again according to where you need to go. Now the lift and wave is something that you'll be doing a lot of. And it basically means allowing, as you lift, allowing the air to flow through. As you're pulling and laying it back down, that fabric will generally smooth out for you all by itself. So just a lift and wave will get it nice and smooth. It's also handy when things are very, very hot to cool them down. So to quickly move one over to the other side, grab your stitches when you're finished and flick over to the other side. As you're doing that, you might also want to use a little bit of a lift on one side because it will flick and lay down much better for you. Okay, so there is physics involved. Gravity is the one we're talking about right here. And what gravity helps us do is as the top of the hip comes over the top of the edge of the ironing board, the rest of the leg will stay nice and flat for me. Okay, so what you're doing is you're snapping and dropping. Snapping and dropping. You can work it in smaller sections, snap and drop. Okay, so to over direct means to basically crisscross a little bit further than would normally be done as if you were doing up the jeans nice and flat. What you're wanting to do is actually get them a little bit further across. That's going to make our folding a lot neater as we go. Okay, so the brush away technique, whether it's with your iron, in this case it'll be with my hand as I'm ironing, just holding the fabric and brushing what I don't need out of the way with my hand. So to unravel stitches that have gone all over the place, you might be going like this with your fingers for quite a while, or hold it by the stitches and stretch it away and you'll have it unraveled in no time. So the tickling out technique is where one hand, as you're ironing with one and you're holding, the other hand will tickle out the fabric from the underneath. So as you're ironing, tickle, tickle, and stretch that out, just drawing that fabric from the underneath with your fingers, tickling it out until it's where you need it to be. So aligning, or to align, means to literally align your stitches. So what we're looking for is to make sure that stitches aren't going one way or the other, that they're all facing in the same direction on our garment. With all of your jeans or pants, the stitches will generally be facing towards the front of the garment rather than the back of the garment. So you'll want to be starting with the outside stitch, aligning that first, and then moving towards the inward seam and having that aligning as well. Before I even do anything, I'm just pre-stretching my stitches. Some stitches might be a lot firmer than others, and in this particular case I would be doing what's called a pre-stretch technique, which means grab your stitch and stretch. So the karate chop is basically a folding technique where you're using the back of your hand as you would with a karate chop along the area that you're wanting to fold. So here at the knees, and I can give it a nice little chop right there to make sure that it's nice and firm. So the smooth through technique is a way of making sure that all of our layers underneath are nice and flat. It's a matter of holding on one side, getting your hand in between the layers and smoothing them all out at the same time. So theoretically that would have covered pretty much every technique I could think of before we iron these jeans. So all that's left to do now is to put all of those parts together and tame these jeans. Thank you for watching. I hope what I've shown you today is helpful to you the next time you need to tame a pair of Levi jeans.